What's up, kings and queens? It's Dan from Daft Previews, and in this video, you know how it is. I'll take you through the most comprehensive NBA player prop preview you're going to see today for all 5 games on this upcoming slate. I'll be going through all the key players, I'll discuss their props, and I'll even call out the best and worst matchups on the day. Let's jump into it. So we're kicking it off with the Los Angeles Lakers versus the Atlanta Hawks. Now, LeBron James and DeJounte Murray are game time decisions. That means there's limited markets out at the moment. I've got a couple key stats in terms of matchup. Firstly, the Lakers allow the second most points to shooting guards. So DeJounte Murray does suit up. And he'd be a good play. But look, if he doesn't, Bogdanovic, he's another great option. But let's have a look at DeJounte Murray because his lines are available. And looking at his last 10 games, he's covered his point line of 21.5 in 8 out of 10 games. He's hit this in 6 straight, which is bloody excellent. Head-to-head matchups, his last one against the Lakers, he only scored 16. But given his recent form, I'll be happy to take him all night long. Quick look at his rebounds. He's covered that in 8 of his last 10 games as well. Against the Lakers, he only had 1. Recent form, excellent on the boards. And in terms of assists, only in 4 of his last 10. And in his last game against the Lakers, he did have 6. So given that points and rebounds have been excellent over his last 10, rebounds are starting to pick up. What are some good options here? Points and assists. He's obviously hit that in 8 of his last 10. If that line is a true line, or do you look at PRA knowing that he can cover assists as well? Because he's covered that in 8 of his last 10. So I do like DeJounte Murray for a good all-round game. Obviously, it depends how healthy he is, what is the injury, how minutes is he going to play. It's definitely something to think about. We do have lines available for Anthony Davis and Clint Capella as well. Let's look at AD firstly. So we can see his point line's 25.5. He's covered this in 5 of his last 10. He scored 23 points in his last outing against the Houston Rockets in a loss. We can see there's no head-to-head matchup on record here. So it is a back-to-back. I wonder if this filter's working. It's not working at the moment. So points-wise, 5 of his last 10. Not too sure. Does he play better on a back-to-back? I'm not too sure. I'd have to look into that one. But rebound-wise, he's covered his rebound line in 7 of his last 10, averaging 11.6 rebounds. So that's decent. That's not too bad at all. Assist-wise, he's covered this in 5 of his last 10. Had a good patch here, but he's really started to slow down on the assist front. So I think what's worth looking into and what we know is that the Atlanta Hawks, they give up a lot of points, they give up a lot of rebounds, they give up a lot of assists. So how is Anthony Davis going to fill up the stat sheet? That's the question. I'm honestly not too sure. We'd have to take some digging, and I'm not going to do that right now. Let's have a look at Clint Capella. His points line, he's hit it in 3 of his last 10. He's averaging 10.2 points per game. The line set at 11.5. Rebound-wise, his line's at 9.5. He's hit this in 5 of his last 10 games, averaging 9.2 rebounds. So, look, I think out of the 3 that are currently available on props.cash, DeJounte Murray definitely the one that's screaming out to me. But you would have to investigate what the injury or illness is that he has to determine whether he's going to be worth taking. So, definitely want to think about that. Jumping into the next one, it's the Indiana Pacers versus the Boston Celtics. Now, Halliburton, Miles Turner, Kristaps Porzingis, they're all game time decisions, but quite a few players on the board that we can have a look at. Let's have a look at Drew Holiday first. The Pacers do allow the 3rd assist to point guards at the moment, so we'll go through his points and his assist prop. Points-wise, he's covered 13.5 in 5 of his last 10. He's covered it in 6 of his last 8 games against the Indiana Pacers, including 21 points against them earlier this season. So points for Holiday, not too shabby. Looking at his assists, he's covered this in 6 of his last game against the Pacers as well. His line's only at 4.5. In his last 10, he's only covered this 3 times. So definitely one to look into. The Pacers don't allow many assists to point guards over their last 30 games, but Drew Holiday's made it happen against them anyway. So that's an interesting one. Miles Turner, check out his points and his rebounds. For his lines at 14.5, he's covered this in 5 of his last 10, and he's hit this in 4 of his last 7 against the Boston Celtics. The line does seem about right to me at 14.5, so I'm neither leaning over or under right now. Rebound-wise, he's only covered this in 4 of his last 10, averaging 6, but he has rebounded well against the Celtics recently. He's covered in his last 3. I think they've already played them 3 or 4 times this year. So, Miles Turner rebounding well against the Celtics. Assist-wise, no one's going to take a prop for Miles Turner assist. Let's look at Tyrese Halliburton if he does play, coming back from an injury. Points wise, he's gone under in 4 consecutive games. Had a long struggled here, got injured, had some time off, came back against the Blazers, struggled in that one, and he hasn't returned since. So that was about 10 days ago. First game back from an injury. Yeah, I wouldn't be taking his over in points, that's for sure, against the Boston Celtics. Let's look at how he's gone against them. He's gone under in his last 2 games against the Boston Celtics. Rebound-wise, yeah, that's a difficult one to choose. Pretty much a 50% hit rate across the board. The line's at 3.5. I won't play that. Assists, I did see lines at 10 for 10.5. Probably moved to 11.5 now. He's hit that in 6 of his last 10, but he's only hit that in 2 of his last 6 against the Boston Celtics. So that's an interesting one for Tyrese Halliburton. He does have a new running mate, Pascal Siakam. Looking at Siakam's points, he's covered in 4 of his last 10. I think this Phoenix game was his first game for the Indiana Pacers, so his last 5 is his Pacers form. And we look at that, he's hit it in 2 of his last 5. Rebound-wise, 3 of his last 5. Assist-wise, he's hit it in all 5 games. Line's set at 3.5, though, which is quite low. Against the Boston Celtics, he's hit this in 6 of his last 8. Rebound-wise, he's gone under in his last 3. And points-wise, he's hit it in 5 of his last 8. So Pascal Siakam assists. I think it'd be good to see how well does he pass the ball with Tyrese Halliburton. Let's have a look. So he's only got 1 game with Tyrese Halliburton. Is that right? Yeah. And I was up against Portland, and he only had 2 assists in that one. So I checked that Portland game for Pascal Siakam, and see how many potential assists did he get. And then probably worth taking the over, depending on how many he's getting. The line's at 3.5. So if he's getting at least 8 to 9 potential assists in that particular game, I'd be more than happy to take the over in assists for Pascal. Let's have a look at Jason Tatum. Points line's at 29.5. He's hit this in 1 of his last 10 games, averaging 23.1, but he has excellent form against the Pacers. He's gone over in 6 consecutive games, and that's because the Pacers allow the most points to power forwards. Pretty common theme for them. So I don't know. Do you back Jason Tatum to break his poor form as of late because of the matchups? Great. I'm not too sure. Rebound-wise, he's covered this in 4 of his last 10. Against the Pacers, he's nailed this in his last 3. Check that out. 12, 12, and 13. Assist-wise, he's covered that in his last 2. In his last 10 games, he's covered it 5 times. So I think there's some value there to get Jason Tatum. You just got to find which play it's going to be. I didn't mind the rebounds one. The rebound one does seem decent. Makes a lot of sense. But yeah, not sold. Let's have a look at Jaylen Brown. Points-wise, he's covered his line in 3 of his last 10, averaging 20.6. He's covered this in 5 of his last 7, including 3 straight games against the Pacers, scoring 30-plus points. So the Pacers give up a lot of points in the paint. So if you're willing to drive the ball, Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, they'll get a lot of buckets against them. So similar sentiment to Tatum. They've been playing bad lately, but could a game against the Pacers, which is an excellent matchup for both of them, could that open them up? Could that break the streak and get them scoring once again? I'm not sure. Derek White, I just want to look at his assists. Reason being is the Pacers do allow the second fewest assists to shooting guards, but he's hit this in 3 of his last 7. So he's definitely capable of hitting it in 4 of his last 10. So I wouldn't confidently back the under, but I would be leaning that way. But that is quite juiced as well. So you're not going to get great odds for that. Let's jump into the next one. It's the Utah Jazz versus the New York Knicks. OG Anunoby's a game time decision for this one. Let's have a look at Jalen Brunson firstly, though. So the Jazz, they do allow the second most assists to point guards over their last 30 games. Jalen Brunson's line is at 8.5. He's only hit that in 5 of 45 games this year. So the line is obviously high because the matchup is great. He's hit this in 1 of his last 10, but I wouldn't be too phased for that, and I wouldn't, quickly take the under either. So, but that's his assist. Let's have a look at his points. His line's at 32.5 now, so obviously no Julius Randle. He's hit this in 3 of his last 10 games, and against the Utah Jazz, he scored 25, 38, and 23 points against them earlier this season. So, yeah, he's going to have a high usage rate, but I don't think the values of Jalen Brunson. I think that line is quite sharp. Let's have a look at Colin Sexton. And Sexton, one of the most consistent players we've seen over the past month, but absolutely shit the bed against the Brooklyn Nets. I know a lot of people backed him. He only scored 6 points. I took his assists in that game, which cash, but let's have a look. He's hit his points line in 8 of his last 10. His last game against the Knicks, he scored 26 points. Could there be a bounce back factor? Firstly, let's investigate that 6-point game. Played 23 minutes, which he's done many times before and still covered. Yeah, there it is. Took 10 shots, and he only made one of them. He was 1 from 10 from the field in that game, which is quite rare because Colin Sexton's been scoring a lot of these points because he shoots a high field goal percentage. So 50%, though, we can say over his last few games, that's really started to dip. So this could be a bounce back game for him, or it could be him regressing, really. Assist-wise, he has been getting after it, though. Check that out. Things are trending up. Teams are looking to stop him from scoring, forcing him to pass. He's covered it in 4 of his last 5 games, averaging 7.6 assists per game. His line's only 5.5 here. It was 5.5 in his last game against the Brooklyn Nets, and he still covered that. So I don't hate that play for Colin Sexton. I think he can get 6 to 7 assists in this one. But yeah, that's one I'm definitely thinking about right there, Colin Sexton. Lauri Markkanen, he was someone I had on the ladder play for 20. He only scored 13 against the Brooklyn Nets. He's covered this line in 6 of his last 10, averaging 24 points per game. Against New York, 13, 29, and 23 points for Laurie. I did like his rebounds in the last matchup, and he covered it. He was 9. His line is still at 8.5. Against the Knicks, though, 6, 5, and 8 rebounds. The Knicks, they actually allow the least rebounds to power forwards over the last 30 days, but Julius Randle's not playing. So are they still going to limit power forwards in the rebound department? I'm not game enough to take an over or an under based on that. His recent form is great, but if he goes under, well, it's clear. The Knicks allow the least rebounds to power forwards, and it doesn't matter if Julius Randle is there. John Collins, he's been getting after it lately. 12.5 points is his line. He's hit this in 4 of his last 5, averaging 15.6 points per game. His last 3 games against the Knicks, 12, 17, and 8. None of those are this season. Rebound-wise, 13, 9, and 2. And in his last 10, he has been rebounding quite well, covering in 6 of his last 10, covering in 4 of his last 5. So his last 4 games have been really good. He's covered it in his points line by far, covered in his rebound line by far. So points and rebounds, his line's at 19.5. Over his last 5 games, that includes his game against Houston, he's averaging 25.2 points and rebounds, John Collins. So I don't mind that. Don't mind that at all. So John Collins, I'm looking at you, my boy. The next player is Josh Hart, and I think there's a lot of value on Josh Hart too, especially with no Julius Randle. Points-wise, he's only covered in 1 of his last 10, and I'm not saying that's where the value is. It's in his rebounds and in his assists. His line is at 8.5 though, but you can get that for plus money. He's hit this in 3 of his last 5, averaging 8.4 rebounds. Utah are actually a pretty good rebounding team, but they might rely on Josh Hart to get some. Let's check his numbers without Julius Randle. Okay. Averaging 9.1 rebounds per game against Julius Randle, but 2 games against the Knicks without Julius, he's gone under. So how about his assists? Because we know he's capable of a triple-double every now and then. We can see in his last 2 games, once his minutes is lifted, he's getting more assists. So 4.5 assists. That could be an interesting play, but yeah, I think the lines are about right. Dante DiVincenzo, he just had a big game for the Knicks. His line is at 19.5 points, though. He scored 28 against the Charlotte Hornets. He's only covered this 20-point line in 6 of 47 games this year, but obviously no Julius Randle, and if there's potentially no OG Anunoby, somebody's got to put up shots, but these are his game logs without Julius Randle. Obviously, he's playing a full complement minutes lately, so you can't really assess his form. Rebounds, lines at 4.5, and assists, they're at lines at 3.5. So I think even those lines are quite sharp. So from this particular game, I'm thinking Colin Sexton assists, they get me a little bit aroused, and John Collins points and rebounds got me feeling a certain way. Pause that. I'm going to pump the brakes for a minute. Firstly, a quick word from me. My first and my last attempt at a ladder challenge absolutely flopped on day 1, so that wasn't even close. Norman Powell covered after playing 10 minutes, he scored 10 points, so that was easy, but Laurie sucked and Bam sucked even worse. So a bunch of vacuum cleaners, those guys. So I don't think I'll be doing that again. I didn't enjoy it, and given the amount of time I spent doing it, editing, creating another video, I don't think that's worth it at all. So my last ladder challenge, I think, for quite some time. But the second announcement is that I'll be adjusting the final picks that I make. And the reason being is, we're almost halfway through the season, and based on the data that I've collated this season, so I track every single bet that I make. I've placed 766 bets on the NBA so far, and I'm up 97.9 units. So it's not the worst record in the world. So I'm pretty happy with that. But when I dive a little bit deeper, I've placed 463 single bets on player props alone, and I'm only hitting those at 51.8%, and I'm down 13 units. And the time it takes to find all these picks is not really generating the return I would like to see. So instead, I'll still be sharing all my picks, don't get me wrong. I'll be playing more ladder plays and more value same game multis. So those two combined, I've generated a profit of 82 units, and that's only from 209 bets, despite them hitting at less than 25%. So if you do choose to tail all the picks, you are going to notice that there will be less picks, right? But the odds are going to be a lot higher, and I've got enough data that tells me that over the long run, it's going to generate a lot more profit. So let me know in the comment section what you guys think and whether you're going to be tailing these types of bets. Are you a risky man, or do you like the safe ones at $1.90 or minus 110? So let me know in the comment section below. Now let's jump back into the preview. We're looking at the Toronto Raptors versus the Chicago Bulls. Jakob Poeltl's a game time decision. Just kicking it off from Nikola Vucevic though. Points wise, he's covered his points line in 5 of his last 10. He only scored 14 points in his last game, but his line's moved up to 18.5. So it's moved up 1 point despite that. And I think it's because of the matchup. The Raptors don't have too much size on the inside, but he's only hit this in 2 of his last 7 games against them. He did score 24 points in their last matchup, though. So that's definitely one to consider. Rebound-wise, he's hit it in 4 of his last 10, but he has rebounded very well against the Toronto Raptors, covering in 5 of his last 7. I don't hate that. And assist-wise, he's covered that in 6 of his last 7 against the Toronto Raptors. And in his last 10, he's covered it 5 times. So his assist prop does get me a little bit aroused. He's hit that quite well. The odds look good. Recent form is bloody brilliant. 5 to 7 assists. Definitely something I could get my hands around. Wouldn't touch his points. His rebound prop seems decent. But yeah, the assist one for Vucevic definitely got me thinking. The next one's DeRozan. He really is a small forward, I would say, / shooting guard. Playing power forward in this one, so the Bulls are going with a small lineup. But points-wise, he's only covered this in 2 of his last 7 games against the Raptors. In his last 10 games, he's only covered it 3 times. So the line's quite high. It's higher than his season average. It's higher than his average against them in head-to-head matchups, and it's higher than his average in the last 10 games. So I don't know what they're predicting, but DeRozan, I wouldn't be surprised if he goes over. There's just no data that tells me he should. It's just the fact that the line is set so high. Rebound-wise, he's hit this in 6 of his last 10. He's hit this in 4 of his last 7 against the Toronto Raptors. With his assists, he's only hit this in 2 of his last 7 and against the Raptors, and 5 of his last 10 games. So I have seen some cuppers looking at his rebounds and assists, taking the over. So he's hit that in 4 of his last 5 games. So that could be an interesting play. But the risk for me is that he did hit it in the last game against the Raptors, but outside of that, he's gone under most of the time. So I'm not getting strong vibes. Let's have a look at Scotty Barnes. Points-wise, he's hit this 1 of 7 games against the Chicago Bulls. In his last 10, he's only hit this 3 times. Rebound-wise, he's been terrible, I know that. 2 of his last 10, averaging 6.5 rebounds per game. The line's set at 7.5. You can get plus money if you choose to take the over. But he has rebounded well against the Bulls. 5 of his last 7 he's covered, but he only got 7 rebounds in his last matchup against them. And I think back then, that was only a couple of days ago. Not gays. That was 11 days ago. Assist-wise, Scotty Barnes has hit in 3 of his last 5, averaging 6.6. But he's only hit in 1 of his last 7 against the Chicago Bulls. So, yeah, nothing I'm really loving about Scotty. His lines do seem about right. Let's have a look here. Gary Trent Jr., he's seen a bump in his minutes lately, given some of the Toronto Raptors injuries, but 15.5, the high line, and it seems about right. He's hit that a few times against the Bulls as well. Let's have a look at Bruce Brown. He's a new Raptor. What's he been doing? Nothing on points to call out. Last 2 games, he's been rebounding very well, so that's interesting. And look at that. Against the Chicago Bulls, he's got a great history of rebounding well against them. So 1 game as a Raptor in that game, still covered his rebound line. Prior to that, Indiana, these games as the Denver Nugget. But I think the main thing is that he has rebounded well against the Chicago Bulls. So that is an interesting one for me. We know what he's capable of. He's done it against the Bulls in every jersey he's worn in the last 3 years. So Bruce Brown rebounds, that's not too bad. Assist-wise, there's nothing screaming out to me there. But a Bruce Brown rebound ladder, could we do that? 5.5, 7 to 9. Not too bad. I'll think about it. Kobe White, points-wise, lines at 23.5. He's hit this 5 of his last 10, averaging 22. He's gone under in all games against the Toronto Raptors. Rebound-wise, he's hit this in 4 of his last 10, but 3 of his last 5, averaging 7. And he's hit this in 2 of 5 games against the Raptors, but in 2 of his last 3. Big rebounding game most recently, too. Assist-wise, he's gone under 4 out of 5. Assists, difficult to read for the Chicago Bulls because sometimes they run a lot of their offense through DeRozan and he can rack up the assist, and sometimes it's Kobe White. So it's very strange. All right, let's jump into the last game. We're looking at the Philadelphia 76ers versus the Golden State Warriors. Tyrese Maxey and Joel Embiid, game time decisions, but I think they're expected to play in this one. Let's have a look at Steph Curry. Now, the 76ers allow the least points and the second fewest assists to point guards, but let's have a look through it. Points-wise, hit this in 4 of his last 10. One recent game, that was last year, 29 points against the 76ers, but he has gone under in 6 out of his last 10, but over in his last 2. Rebound-wise, that looks nasty. Assist-wise, he's done well. 8 of his last 10, he's covered this 5.5 line, averaging 6.2. Last matchup with them, he only had 3. Potential blowout if Maxey and Embiid don't play, though. So, yeah, I'm not too comfortable taking Steph Curry on anything. Assist-wise for Draymond Green, I haven't made a bet on Draymond all year. He's gotten 11 assists in 2 straight games, Sacramento versus the Lakers. And those 2 games, Steph Curry actually went over. So, something if you want to get a little bit risky and if you're thinking correlation, because Draymond got 10 assists last time against the 76ers. Take Draymond for 10 points, Steph Curry for 30. 10 assists for Draymond. 10 assists for Draymond, Steph Curry for 30. That's a correlating bet because, Curry's gone off the last 2. So I wonder if these ones correlate too. So Draymond got his assist against Portland, Oklahoma, and in the last 2 games. Steph Curry went off in his last 2 games, and he didn't. Actually, we've got to go back further because Draymond was out injured. Portland and Oklahoma. Oh, Jesus Christmas. Okay. I have to do some study on the side to find the answer for that one. But if you guys can check that for me, that would help me out. But yeah, definitely correlating over their last 2 games, that's for sure. Well, actually, if we do Steph Curry with Draymond, then that will come up. Yes. With Draymond Green, last 10 games, Portland and Oklahoma, yeah. So it looks like the last 4 games that Steph Curry has scored 30-plus points, Draymond Green got a shit ton of assists. How about that for correlation? 9 and 10. So 9, 13, 11, 11. So even if you just took Draymond over in assists, Steph Curry over in points, it's correlating. It's happened in the last 4 times. They have both covered their lines. They've done it together. So that's a very interesting one. You're welcome. Jonathan Kuminga, he's been scoring a lot of points lately. Check this out. He's covered it in 6 straight games. He scored 20-plus points. That's crazy. And in 5 games against the Philadelphia 76ers, these last 5, against the Philadelphia 76ers, he's only averaging 5.5 points. But this last 5-game stretch, check that out. 25.2 points per game. He's playing a lot of minutes. He's taking a lot more shots, and he's shooting at a very good percentage, 63.8%. He's even shooting threes at 40%. So Jonathan Kuminga is in excellent form at the moment. I wouldn't put it past him to do it again. Rebound-wise in his last 5, yeah, it's not too bad. Not too bad at all, Jonathan Kuminga. Who else is there? Andrew Wiggins. Let's just check the points line here for Wiggins. In his last 5, he's been scoring buckets too. What's going on here? The Golden State Warriors are alive. That's pretty good. Klay Thompson in his last 5, what's he been doing? He's had 3 games with 20-plus points. This is out of this world. So Klay Thompson scoring more, Wiggins scoring more, Steph Curry scoring in his last 2. So they're probably not getting anything off their bench. That's what that tells me. But yeah, from this one, I don't mind. Let me know what you guys think. I won't make my final decision for a few hours, but Steph Curry overs in points, Draymond over in assist, or do we go with Jonathan Kuminga over in points because he's been killing that lately? Or do we take all three? I'm not too sure. You guys let me know. So check the pinned comment as always for my final picks on these games. As I mentioned earlier, less picks, but more value. So hopefully you guys enjoyed. If not, you just let me know. We can make a pivot. Let me know what your thoughts are. You might have feedback on how I can make better tips. Like I've said many times in many other videos, I'm no professional. I'm just a casual guy. I work 9 to 10 hours a day, come home. I like checking NBA stats. I'm a bit analytical. I like having the occasional bet. And by occasional, I mean every single day. But let me know what you guys think. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace!
Sub to the channel cause your boy's getting busy. Coming to you live from the west side of Sydney. We've got the free picks and the juice on the daily. It's all free, you don't even have to pay me.